Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we're going to continue the series on how to solve quadratic equations using the quadratic formula. So today we're going to be solving example 2. The question we have is x squared plus 5x equals 0. So the first thing you have to do whenever you're given a quadratic equation to solve, especially when you're still learning, is for you to write the standard equation of the quadratic equation, like the standard form of the quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is not equals to 0. And the reason why this is part of the equation is just for you to know that because we want a quadratic equation, we have to write this down. If we have a equals to 0, meaning we don't have the condition that a is not equals to 0, and we just leave it and a can be equals to 0, we end up losing this term. And if a equals to 0, this doesn't exist anymore, and then we have bx plus c equals to 0, and bx plus c equals 0 is no longer a quadratic equation. It is now a linear equation. So that is just the whole reason why this is here. This is just a brief description. You don't necessarily have to write this in an exam or in a test. This is just for you to understand the basics of like the little things, so that you actually know the material. So let's continue. So I'm just gonna rub this off. It's just a brief analysis. So like I said in example 1, I'm just going to say it again. A equals the coefficient of x squared, which is the constant value in front of the x squared. B equals the coefficient of x, which means the constant value in front of x. And then c is just the constant value in the quadratic equation. In quadratic equation given. So one way we can also think about c being the constant value is you can also think of c as the coefficient of x raised to the 0. And any mathematician will teach you that x raised to the 0 equals 1. Anything, in fact, raised to the 0 equals 1, depending on whether we know the value or we don't know the value. So 1 raised to the power of 0 equals 1. 4 raised to the power of 0 equals 1. 1 million raised to the power of 0 equals 1. Just know that. So this 1, x raised to the power of 0 equals 1. 1 time a constant is always going to give you a constant. That is the reason why here we just basically have that as c instead of c x raised to the 0, because we know x to the 0 equals 1. So now we start the process of solving the equation. So from this information here, we know that the coefficient of x squared here is 1, so a equals 1. The coefficient of x here is 5, and then the constant value given is 0. And a quick thing you have to know is that because we don't have a constant value given, we just assume the constant value is 0 because nothing exists here. Like c here, there's no third term here, and if there's no third term here, then the third term is actually 0. So c here equals to 0. So next we write what the quadratic formula is, which is x equals negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So the next process you have to do, to be honest, because of how easy the quadratic formula is, if you can know the equation of the quadratic formula, your half of your work is basically done. So all you have to do here is just plug in A right here and right here, B right here and right here, and then C right here. So let's go through the process. So x equals -5 plus or minus 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 0 over 2 times 1. So x equals -5 plus or minus 25 minus 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 0 is 0, so 25 minus 0 over 2. So next we have x equals -5 plus or minus square root of 25 over 2. So from what we know, the square root so next we continue here. X equals to -5 plus or minus the square root of 25. We know that to be 5, so we don't have to write that again. We just put 5 here, and then we write over 2. So one thing I should quickly add is that anytime you're dealing with a quadratic equation and you are solving for the values of x, it's important for you to know that because of the highest power of x is 2, we're supposed to expect 2 values of x, so 2 values of the unknown. If this is a cubic equation where the highest power of the unknown, which in this case is the variable x, is 3, we're supposed to expect 3 values of x. If we're dealing with a linear equation, let's say 5x plus 2 equals 0, we should expect the value of x to be 1. We should expect that there's going to be a single value of x because it is a linear equation, meaning the highest power of x is 1. So I'm just letting you know that in this situation, just because of we have a quadratic equation, we should expect that we should have 2 values of x. So, and the defining basically factor I would say in knowing that is this plus or minus here, because we want 2 values basically in this equation. We remember that because we have the quadratic formula, this plus or minus value here is what is going to separate the 2 values from each other. Is this what is going to distinguish the 2 values from each other? So here now, because we know we're going to have 2 values of x, we have x sub 1 equals -5 plus 5. So we pick just one of the signs over 2. X sub 1, -5 plus 5, we know that is 0. So 0 over 2. So x sub 1 equals 0. Then we go to the next part. X sub 2 is -5 over 2. So x sub 2 is -10 over 2, which the answer is x sub 2 equals -5. So you can see what I was saying about having 2 values of x. We have x sub 1 to be 0 and x sub 2 to be -5. And we have that only because of the highest power of this equation given of the quadratic equation is 2. So if you're a student who struggles a lot with like anxiety in exams and you've solved it but you're not sure if you got the correct answer, in example 1 I did in a previous video, I showed you something called a check. I'm going to show you how to do a check as well here. So let's change the color to purple so that you can differentiate this from this part from the actual material. So we have purple, and next I can show you what you do for a check. So yeah, you just use a check, not necessarily because you need to do it. It's just for you to be sure that you got the correct answer. So what the plan is for the check is you put both values one by one at a time. So x sub 1 equals 0 will be put back into this equation right here, which is the equation given, and the left side and the right side of the equation has to give us the same value. We do the same thing for x sub 2 as well. We put the negative 5 back into the initial equation given, and we want the left side and the right side to be equal. So let me show you and the whole process. So when x sub 1 equals 0, in order for us to check, we just put it back into the equation. X squared plus 5x equals 0. So x sub 1 equals 0. Put it back into this equation. We have 0 squared plus 5 times 0 equals 0. 0 plus 0 equals 0. 0 equals 0. Here there's a check. Alhamdulillah. This just basically means the left side and the right side equal. That means the x sub 1 equals 0 that we got is actually one of the values. Now we do the same thing for x sub 2. Equals to 0. So 0 squared plus, x sub 2. It's important for you to check and cross-check your work as you're working. I'm sorry, x sub 2 is not equals 0. That's x sub 1. X sub 2 is actually equals to negative 5. So I'm going to put that down now. Sorry. So x sub 2 equals negative 5 is, and we put it back in x squared plus 5x equals 0. So negative 5 squared plus 5 times negative 5 equals 0. So negative 5 squared is 25. 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. So 25 minus 25 equals 0. So 0 equals 0. Another check. Alhamdulillah. So this just means 0 equals 0, 0 equals 0. That means we got the right value that we solve for. And something important you have to know in math is that anytime you're trying to solve for something and you're trying to check if the left side and the right side is equal based on the value that you put into an equation, that means what you have is correct. So you don't have to stress anymore, because when you've worked hard and you've put the value back into the equation and you get it and you've checked and you see that the answer on the left part of the equation, the right part of the equation is the same, know that you got the right answer and your work is done. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you guys more in the series that I'm doing on algebra and the series I'm doing for my other math courses, chemistry courses, physics courses, and microbiology classes on my channel. So if you like this video and you would like to see more on this material, you should watch example 3, example 4, and all the series and on my channel. So I hope this was a beneficial video for you, and I hope that you learned something, and I hope that you would come back actually so that you can come learn more from me. I wish you all the best. Assalamu alaikum.